excited to include the education of content area teachers who, because of changing demographics, now find themselves also teaching language learners. So content area teachers are math specialists and history specialists and social studies teachers, and they are working principally now with English language learners. So I want to tell you about Michelle, who is actually a math teacher. But the two of us have been working together for several years, and we've become very good friends, and both of us share a passion for helping engage students in learning. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story that she told me about her students and a young woman who has become a superstar on YouTube. Do you all know about YouTube? Silly question, huh? Everyone knows about YouTube. But her name is Victoria Hart. She's known as V Hart, and she is engaging students everywhere in math. But she says that her mind always pondered mathematical implications, but that she herself is not a mathematician. In fact, she's an artist. So she sees the blending of art and math everywhere. Everywhere she looks in the world, she sees mathematical concepts. And she calls herself a recreational, and this is a new word, mathe-musician. Okay, to talk about this blending of art and music. Now, V Hart has done many videos on YouTube, and you may or may not have seen them. If you're in math, I bet you have. But the first video she posted went viral. I don't know if you know that term, but viral is like virus, right? A spreading of a virus. It happens very quickly. So within a few short weeks after she posted her first video, it was about drawing stars, she had over 1 million hits. So that's going viral, right? But this was really a video about geometry and polygons. And then she posted another one, and this one is so incredible. It's about doodling snakes. She doodles. Do you know what doodling is? Okay, so how many of you doodle? You know, I hope you're not doodling now. I'm trying to get you not to doodle now. But doodling is where you just listen and you also draw on your paper. Yeah? How many of you do that or have done that before? Not right now, but hopefully. Yeah, lots of you doodle. Well, she's a doodler, and she doodled about snakes, but this snaking doodle segues into graph theory. Okay, because she's fascinated with math, and she says this is a subject that's really too interesting to be included in grade school curricula. But she created a huge stir with this doodling of snakes. Now, the 3-minute video that you are about to view never shows her face, just her hands doodling in a notebook. And as she doodles, so she's doodling, she's talking about math things. She's talking about binary trees, okay? Trees that split into 2 parts. She's talking about a mythological character called Hercules, and she's talking about cutting heads off of mythical Hydra as she tries not to continue the binary trees. She talks about a lot of things that are mathematical, like fractal pattern known as Sierpinski's triangle. Okay, don't worry about all of these words, because some of you may know them and some of you may not. Now, if you had trouble understanding that last slide, don't worry, because she is talking fast, but the only thing you need to worry about is the visual. Just watch her and enjoy. By the way, her speaking is fast for me. It's fast for anyone. So try not to worry about the English. Then after this video, I want to talk about why I think her work is engaging students and why, after studying her work and listening to Michelle and her experiences with her own language students, why I think her work is important for you as English language teacher.
My family is my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. The final R gets dropped because it's something that, in fact, that's one way to tell someone's dialect, where they're from, in English very quickly. In Spanish, when I was learning with all of those Mexicans and Nicaraguans and Hondurans, the thing I learned was some places they pronounce the S, like the name of the beer. In Mexico, there's a beer that has an X and an X. The name of the beer is Dos Equis. And so the Mexicans will say Dos Equis. But when the Nicaraguans have the beer, the same bottle of beer, they don't say Dos Equis, they say Dos Equis. So como la S, I can't even do it, right? So when I was learning Spanish, my book had an S everywhere, but the people I was practicing with, no one pronounced the S. And I thought, this is strange, but they know something, they're native speakers. So here's what I want you to do. This conversation, I'm going to try to do it really quickly. What number from 1 to 10 do you hear? Imagine if you are not a Spanish speaker and all you know is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, and you practice it 100 times. I know my numbers from 1 to 10. First person says, ¿qué dijiste? ¿Vas a Miami otra vez? Sí, ya van a ser 3 veces que voy a Miami desde enero. ¿Y te gusta viajar tanto? Bueno, me da igual, pero lo que no me gusta son los vuelos sin comida. What? This really happened. What number do you hear? 5. Because I was sitting at the table with all my Nicaraguan friends, and this was a conversation, and I understood nothing. Machine gun fire, all this rapid language. And finally, I stopped the conversation. I said, ¿qué es una mida? What's a mida? Now, and they said, mida? There's no word mida. And I said, there's a word mida. I know you have a word miga, like a piece of the bread, right? So if you have miga, surely you can have mida. And they said, no. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, yo no sé qué es una mida, pero hay 5 de ellas.
Here's my point. There is a grammar rule in English and in Spanish for the order of adjectives. But in the real world, in real English, how many descriptive adjectives do you usually find in front of a noun? 0. In conversation, 0. The average, yes, that doesn't mean you have none. But if you were to analyze a real conversation, for example, 2 people speak and somebody says, listen for this, I don't mean adjectives like one or a, right, articles. I'm talking about descriptive like delicious, right? Just notice this conversation. Hey, what did you do last night? We went out, any adjectives? What did you do last night? Still none. Oh, we went out to dinner. Really, where did you go? We went to that restaurant down by the beach. How was it? Oh, it was great. It was great is not an adjective in front of a noun. It's in a predicate, right? It was great. Really, what did you eat? Oh, I had this ceviche stuff. Really, what is that? Oh, it's some fish with some lemon juice. Yeah. How was it? It was great. It was delicious. It's the best place I've ever eaten. It was delicious. Still not there. It was the best place. Finally, we got 1. So the average noun in conversation has 0 descriptive. It must be like 0.4. Okay, we do the average here. But the point is, we don't put these in normal and you don't do it in Spanish either. Listen to Spanish conversation. Please, not teachers talking to teachers, because we don't talk normal anymore, right? Because if you've been teaching language this long, like in my English, when I'm speaking to my friends, I use no idioms, I use no phrasal verbs, because all day long, I know I can't use phrasal verbs with anybody, because they don't understand what I'm talking about, right? The point is, in normal conversation, the average native speaker puts no descriptive adjective in front of a noun. If you put 1, we put 1. We don't put 2, we hardly ever put 3. Where would you find 3? In a literature book. It was a dark and dreary night. Dark and dreary. That's not a common conversation thing. So people spend all this time. Here's the rule. If it's quality is like nice, and then something else, and the color and the shape, and oh my God, you have a rule. I have had so many, when I was in Japan, Japanese students could tell you the rule in Japanese. I mean, verbatim. Multiple choice test, choosing, 8 items, A through H, which is the common, get it right 100%. And you say, excuse me, where are you from? Oh, no English. Because they have memorized these grammar rules. It's the worst, best example, okay, of where people have taught grammar so well that nobody ever bothered to think, well, why would you need this grammar? I'll tell you the rule in English. The adjectives, forget any rule you learn. Here's the simple way. You tell me, in general, is this word a noun or an adjective or both? Take the word watch, like the watch on my wrist. It's a noun. It's a noun. Okay. What about a word like nice? It's an adjective. Can nice ever be a noun? No. Just an adjective. What about a word like plastic? It's a noun. Can it be an adjective? Yeah. See, that's kind of like the 50-50 mark, right? What about the word blue? It's an adjective. It can also be a noun. What's your favorite color? My favorite color is, that's the name of it, right? So in English, when you make the string, we always have the noun. The exact noun is always the last thing. Doesn't matter whether you've got one word like a watch, two words like a blue watch, three words a blue plastic watch, a nice, it won't matter. The last word is always the single most important word. So if we're teaching listening comprehension, that's what I always tell my students. When there's this chunk, you need to listen to the last word, because the last word is exactly what they're talking about. Okay? The rest is just description. And that works in your favor. Now in in Spanish, you know, había un noun, blah, 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 blah. And the easiest word to catch in Spanish or English is always the last word. So all I hear is something, 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 delicioso. But what was delicioso? I don't know, right? So at least I can describe it in Spanish. I don't know what you're talking about. And then in English, you can tell me what you're talking about, but you don't know what the description was, right? Because of the order. But the point is, in English, the key thing is the very last word. And here's how it works. In English, when you have a nice blue plastic watch, between blue and plastic, which one would you say is the most noun? Between blue and plastic. Plastic can be noun and adjective, and blue can be noun and adjective. I would say plastic, because when most people ask me what is plastic, they'll say it's a thing. People don't think about plastic being an adjective, even though it can be. So in order, we have nice, which is always an adjective. We've got blue, right, which can be both. We've got plastic, which can be both, but we agree that it's really more noun. And we've got watch at the end, which is a noun. In English, in a noun phrase, the more nouny it is, it goes that way. The more adjective-y it is, it goes that way. That's the rule. So instead of memorizing, but there is a rule, but just because there's a rule doesn't mean you need to teach it. And I think sometimes teachers, we get so excited, oh my God, there's a rule, and I figured it out. And I can't wait to share it with the people who don't want to be in my class. All right? People are probably never as excited about this as we are. All right? Anyway, let's talk about this in grammar, vocabulary, reading. Someone asked me yesterday, don't you think that reading is a good way to learn a language? It is a good way, but it took me 18 years, and it took you 18 years. I'm still learning. So again, my students don't have 18 years to figure this out. So if I were learning Bulgarian, if we were in the Bulgarian course right now in Sofia, Bulgaria, and the teacher said, here, in all of your free time, I have no free time. In all of your free time, read these 2 books. I don't have any free time. My students don't do the homework I assign, let alone extra homework, right? And then the second thing I think at the end is about teachers who have very little training. I'm going to show you some activities today. And the last one I'm going to talk about is the idea, you have a class of students. What's your class size? Average class size? 25. I have worked, the largest class I've ever had was about 75. I had a person once who was in Senegal, Africa. She came to speak to our university, and she teaches classes of 400. Okay? Now, so anytime, I always remember that. When I complain, like, oh my God, I have 26. All I'm going to do right now is working on 2s or 3s. You're going to take these 3 sentences and combine them into one sentence. You can move words, you can change words. Every concept that's here must remain in your final answer. All right? But you can certainly move things. Here's what you don't want to do. The flag of Mexico is red, and the Mexican flag is white, and the flag of Mexico is green. But a lot of students, when they write, the teacher writes, combine. You know, or your sentences are too short, combine. But what does the student do? Then they combine. And then you get mad, like, this is not a good combination. Because you didn't teach how to combine. Combining sentences, there are many different ways of doing this. The easy one is just the and the or and the but, right? But sometimes you have to put something inside. Like, the book is on the table, the book belongs to me. The book that is on the table belongs to me. Or the book that belongs to me is on the table. That's where it's a dependent, right? Inside. So there are many ways of combining it. Sometimes you just change it to one adjective, something like that. Okay? So right now, we'll take around that later on. This is not happening in one class. I'm just saying, as you plan your lesson, try to get students to produce something first, and then just put it in a folder. and then when you go to class 3 or 4 days later, then pass those papers out, students will be a lot more interested in that content than when you did it the very first day. Human nature. It's the same way we react to the email that we sent to the person when we thought we were so angry. The same thing you can actually use in your classrooms there. All right? The third activity I'm going to go to. Let's see. You've got page 117. All right, which is the next page. You see on the bottom of the page, it's called language focus. So language focus here is a grammar activity. So my teaching point, teacher to teacher, my teaching point for you today is don't teach a grammar point in a writing situation or a speaking situation. You can't imagine how the student would use it. To me, learner needs to drive everything. Why would I need to know this, right? So if somebody wants, again, that future perfect, what are you going to do with it? Nothing. I can't imagine doing that. So in this case, suppose that our writing goal is something with a comparison essay. So someone asked me to compare life in Lima with life in Miami, because the person has lived in both places. So in this case, it will be a comparison essay. Comparison essay, there are 2 ways to organize it. One way is you can have 4 paragraphs, which is introduction, Lima, Miami, conclusion. Another way is to say, I'm going to compare it based on population, on traffic, and food, okay? And then I would have introduction, population, both, food, both, and what's the other one? Traffic, both, okay? And then the conclusion, yeah, they're both pretty bad traffic, yeah. I'm not sure who the winner here would be, Lima or Miami in that case. But the point is, okay, that's the composition. What grammar do you need to do this? You need comparison. Now in in Spanish this is very easy. You just put mas with everything. Doesn't matter, right? Except you have a few irregular words, like you don't have the mas bueno and the mas malo kind of thing, right? But the ones that are irregular for you in Spanish are also irregular in English, because we don't have more good and more bad. We have better and worse, right? But in English, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, we don't have one way to make comparison. We have 2 ways to make comparison, right? So sometimes you add more, like more delicious, and sometimes you add an ER. So my question is, what's the rule, teacher to teacher here? What's the rule for comparison? Number of syllables. So the rule is when you have a 1-syllable adjective like what? Cheap. I'll use cheap. Cheap is expensive. So cheap. That's, A is cheap, but B is cheaper. You don't say more cheap because it's 1 syllable, right? And then if it's 2 syllables ending in a Y, has to end in a Y. Like busy is not more busy. Busy is busier. And also all of the weather words. Sunny, windy, rainy, cold. Yeah, those would be a Y. So rainy, rainier. So we also have an ER. So 1 syllable ER, 2 syllables ending in a Y has an ER. Everything else takes more. Now, that's the rule we tell students. I will say, teacher to teacher, unfortunately, no one's in charge of English. So Spanish has like Academia Real, there's somebody in charge somewhere. But in theory, there's somebody in charge. And at least I hear Spanish speakers say things like, oh, the best Spanish is spoken in, but you have a concept, you have a concept. But in English, I've never heard anybody really talk about the best English is in this place, or there's no one in charge of the grammar. So the grammar is changing. All languages are changing. But in English, it's changing even more because there's not really anybody in control. So, teacher to teacher. I would never tell a student this. I would not admit this. It's secret. Okay? Teacher to teacher, here's what's happening. What I just said was true. That the single syllables like cheap, those are cheaper. Ends in a Y like sunny, sunnier. 3 syllables or more like delicious, it's more delicious. Never deliciouser. But the ones that are changing are 2 syllables that don't end in a Y. So give me an example. Pick the word like handsome. Handsome, 2 syllables. Now, so John is handsome, but Paul is handsomer or more handsome? Well, both are possible, but native speakers usually will use the more in that case, usually, but they're both possible. Now, when you use the superlative, which should follow the same rules, but it doesn't. John is handsome. Paul is more handsome or handsomer, but Peter is, which is the most handsome? I've heard the handsomest. I hear that a lot. The point is, it's in transition. It's in transition. Now, students, I've heard someone say, most handsomest. Really? Where did you hear that? Can you please bring that example to class tomorrow? Because I don't want to talk about it right now. It doesn't follow the rule, all right? My point is, the rule is changing a little bit, but why would you, yeah, friendly is a good example. So like, yeah, like more friendly and friendlier, or she's the friendliest person I know, but she's the most friendly. So my point is, these two syllables ending in a Y, some of them are in transition. Which one? Modern is one. Now modern is a good one because I've seen the modernists, but if I say moderner, we don't like the we don't like that sound. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. So the point is, why would you even teach these things? Here's what I don't do. I don't teach grammar just to teach the grammar. I teach it because you need it for that kind of writing. All right? And here we have some examples, but I'm going to skip that because it's just what most books would have. Huge sinks. Maintaining this constant flow of traffic in the kitchen is a complicated juggling act. The action in a kitchen, in the restaurant kitchen, never stops. So we have this paragraph now, and you see some of the words are in bold. If I could make one recommendation, whether you choose these books or any book, people today in 2012 should be choosing books that have vocabulary right there in your face in bold, not in italics, but in bold. There's no reason. The teachers are already too busy. Really. There's no reason for the vocabulary not to be explicit. The students start reading, and the first word they probably will not know at this level will be the word hectic. But the word's in bold, and then below it tells you hectic means busy. Now, is that an exact synonym? No, it's not an exact synonym, but it's enough for you to understand what's happening in this passage and have a good idea about this word. Now, are there other vocabulary words that your students won't know that are not in bold? The constant might be one. To hurry. Some people say line 3, the word shout. Maybe the students don't know the word shout. Right? But the point is, when we have people's vocabulary is not going to accidentally get better. For me, I really consider my #1 job as a teacher is to promote vocabulary. Truly. I'm a walking dictionary, not for every single word, but the point is, my goal is to help students, because there's so many words. I can't teach you all the words. No book, no course can teach you all the words you need to know. That is 100% the student's responsibility. But my job in class is to make sure that they are with me and they realize that I appreciate how difficult vocabulary is. I explain vocabulary in class. I do something with it. And the textbook should do something with vocabulary. So this textbook does 3 things. The first thing it does is the vocabulary is there. It's in bold. All right? Now look on the next page. The next page, which is page 51, this is kind of a matching activity for the definition or a synonym. So, for example, look at #1. Now, all of these vocabulary phrases came from the chapter. So we're on activity 15. So, again, I don't have the whole chapter for you. You can look at the book at the booth. But, for example, up to 50. Is up to 50, is that more similar to 48 or 49, or 50 or 51? 48 or 49, because it's asta, right? Yeah, up to. Now look at #2, a grill. For clothes or for food? For food. Exceptional. Very bad or very good? Yes, very good. Although, technically, it could be the opposite, but we don't use it for that. Like, I cannot say, I'm so sorry, my test was exceptional. No. Because technically it just means you were different from everybody else. Everybody else made an A, you're the only F. So yes, it was actually exceptional. Exceptional. Yeah, but it's in the wrong direction. #4, the pace would be speed. #5, a blizzard, winter. #6, a genre, a type of writing. Yeah? #7 is a good vocabulary word, soap, very wet. Now you see, soap is one of those good words. Spanish would be what? So this is one of those words. If I'm learning Spanish, what's the basic word I learn? I learn mojado. I learn wet. But the problem is, I have to go beyond that with my vocabulary, right? Because here's what happens. Most students in my experience, don't make an attempt to go beyond when they have a word. Like they have the word mojado, that's enough, right? My favorite, example, I've seen students where we teach them one word and we teach them a new word, it's a synonym, and students will say, yeah, I decided not to write that word down. Why? First, I'm shocked you made a decision, okay? But you decided not to write it down. Why? And they'll say, I already have a word for that. Yeah, but it's not the same thing, right? So let's just try 2 more here. Outstanding, very good, and mild, not extreme. Now, this is a very traditional kind of activity. But let me show you something that's different. Look on the next page, if you would, please. Now, when you want to use these words in your writing or speaking, the word is not in isolation. You have to know what the word goes with. These are called collocation. And I'm sure you've heard people talk about this before, but concept of collocation, heard that word before? Collocation. The idea is that when you learn a word, the word is not in isolation. I'll give you an example here. Take the word commit. So if you're learning the word commit, and so this is the sentence was, she committed, past tense, yeah, she committed blank. And so it turns out the word commit means to make or do, but the word commit in this case is almost always something negative. She committed a crime, she committed suicide,